Here's an example of a project using rubber stamps. This is an artist's book, and these are all printed onto sheet music from a roll piano. The book is called Piano Lessons, and the hands get increasingly more and more frustrated as they attempt to play the music. You can see I'm stamping in red and in blue, and there's a number of different patterns and designs. In order to make this book, I had about 20 hand stamps, plus quite a few incidentals, arrows, and a 2-colour title. You can see this takes quite a bit of planning, but once you've cut the stamps, you've got them for any other projects you want to use them for. In this short clip, I'm just going to talk you through how I would cut some rubber stamps. You can use any kind of rubber really to do this. I'm going to demonstrate with Speedy stamp rubber, which is this lovely pink soft rubber that's very easy to cut, and you can just cut this with regular lino tools, but you can also make little stamps out of just regular erasers, so it's very easy to do. The tools that you need are regular lino cutting tools, so you might have a set of these wooden tools. If not, you can use, again, regular lino tools that you're probably familiar with that we've got in the studios. My preferred tool are the very hard lino tools. These ones stay sharp much longer, but they can be quite expensive. So I would only invest in these if you're going to make a lot of stamps. Otherwise you'll find that the basic ones will be fine. You'll also need some actual stamps. Again, you can get these in lots of different sizes. They dry out pretty quickly, so if you are going to use them, I would keep them in a plastic bag wrapped up somewhere to keep as much air out of them as possible. Right, I'm now going to talk you through rubber stamp processes. Another thing I find really useful when lino cutting or rubber stamp making is a bench hook. Again, these are easily bought in a lot of art shops. They're not overly complicated that you can't make it yourself as well. But they basically grip onto the desk, and there's a bar at the top, so when you're cutting, again in this direction, always away from your rear hand, that you can actually find that the rubber won't slip if it's in this little bench hook. Lino tools come in a variety of sizes and shapes. The cheapest one will be about £5 to £10 with a variety of blades. The fixed one will cost you about £10 to £15. They're much more reliable and can be sharper. The professional ones are quite expensive at about £20 per item. First of all, you need your design. For this example, I'm going to do a pointing hand with a wiggly finger. I'm using my own hand as reference for the drawing. Draw it the way round that you want it, and make sure you draw it the same size as you're going to cut it, as this will make things a lot easier later. I'm going to now speed up this animation a bit so that you can see what the drawing is like. Once you're happy with your design, you need to use some tracing paper to actually trace the outlines more carefully. This is where you want to be neat and tidy because you don't want too many lines to copy. You can see at this stage I can make a few alterations in the shapes and the lines, but generally I want to keep this as neat, and this will be my template. Once you've got your neat tracing, write the word front the way round that you want it to go, because you've got to remember with lino cutting, as with rubber stamps, you're cutting backwards, so that any text that you want will need to be reversed when you're cutting it. Otherwise, when you stamp it, it'll be the wrong way round. You can see now I'm just going over the outline with a soft pencil, and this is just to put a bit of graphite on the back so that when I trace it down onto the stamp, it will be nice and clear. I'm ready to trace my design down onto the piece of rubber that I've got. And I'm trying not to waste too much of it because I can use the offcuts for a smaller design. So again, you can see that I'm going to trace it down back to front, so the word front should read backwards. And I'm using a sharper pencil to make sure I get a good transfer onto the rubber. If you've got a very complicated design, you can masking tape your tracing paper to the rubber so that you can do this over a period of time rather than in one sitting like I'm doing for this demonstration. At this point, take a few moments just to tidy up any lines so they're a little bit clearer. This will make it a lot easier when you're trying to cut the actual lines out. You can see I'm going to do a general neaten up. Once I'm ready to start cutting, I use a piece of waste cardboard or offcut of paper just to put something on the table to collect all the bits that I'm going to cut off. Position the rubber in a way that's convenient so that you can cut successfully away from your other hand. This is the crucial rule, and you need to be really careful because the lino tools are very sharp. My preferred method is to go around the outside of the shape first to give you an indication of where you're going to cut. This is where you need to be really careful and take your time. You can see how slowly I'm doing this. This is not a quick activity. And you can see that I keep changing lino tools to make sure that I've got the right tool for the right curve that I'm trying to cut. Sometimes it's easier to move the tool, and sometimes it's easier to move the actual piece of rubber, but generally you'll need a combination of both of these to be able to cut successfully round. It's quite a relaxing activity, so take your time, cut slowly. Once I've got a better indication of where I actually want my design, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the excess. So I'm giving myself a rough guide to do that, not cutting too close to the actual design, and then I'm going to use just a sharp knife to cut this away. Using a cutting mat underneath the rubber, I'm going to cut very slowly and carefully with small little movements just to try and get through it. It's quite thick to cut, but it is very soft. Again, make sure you keep your other hand out of the way, and you might need a few cuts to get through. Any chunks that are cut off that are big enough I will keep, because again these will be useful for me to cut another stamp later. Now I return back to the actual cutting, and I'm trying to remove all the excess area of pink around the outside of the hand. This is where I need to go a little bit carefully and slowly because I don't want to accidentally slip and cut through the bit I want. I've edited these clips a bit together so that you can see the process, but you can see how slowly generally I'm cutting. And this is a good rule to follow, that you don't want to do this kind of activity very quickly. And there's pretty much the finished design. I'm just going to put a pattern onto the sleeve and then it will be finished. We're now ready to print. What you might need to do is give the rubber stamp a bit of a clean if it's kind of a bit greasy from your hands or from the pencil. When you've got your stamp pad, if it's got a protective film, keep that and put it back when you've finished, because this is really useful to stop the thing from drying out. You can see it takes quite a bit of a go when you're first stamping to build up the layers of ink on the pad. I keep pressing down and I keep moving it around in the ink pad to get a good, nice covering. Once I'm ready to stamp, again you just need finger pressure, but try not to nudge it while you're stamping it down, and actually hold it carefully and make sure you press over the entirety of the pattern. Finished. Another nice technique with rubber stamps is that you can actually stamp them onto a variety of surfaces. Here I'm just showing you a sample of me stamping onto a piece of cardboard and then stamping the same design onto a piece of yellow library indexing card. And there's a nice technique called chine-collé where you can tear one piece or cut one piece and collage it onto the other one. So I'm just going to demonstrate that to show how it works. Then of course draw and paint as normal. Have fun!